Hey, everybody out there, how are you doing? Thank you for joining me. This is the Tim Laskus Show, episode 008. And today's guests, yes, guests, include David Bach and Tracy Hoose, and they are with BikeBoards. And you might be asking, what in the world is BikeBoards? Well, let me tell you, it is awesome. They have a company that makes boards for your mountain bike. They'll fit your bike for touring, for backcountry, for freestyling, and they convert your mountain bike into basically like a ski that has a seat, because your mountain bike is transformed into an awesome, awesome fun ride. So sit back, enjoy, keep running, keep working out, whatever you're doing while you're listening. Thank you.
The Tim Laskus Show, in search of entrepreneurial gold. Tim digs deep into the minds of his guests, entertaining, down to earth, and informative. Now, here's your host, Tim Laskus.
All right, David and Tracy, thanks for being with me today. And just tell the listeners a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah, my name is David Bach with BikeBoards. I'm the founder, and basically I'm a general contractor, and I work in the Front Range in Colorado and also on the Western Slope doing contracting work.
Thanks for having us. My name's Tracy.
Sure.
I grew up in Middle Tennessee. My professional job is as an archaeologist, and I have a background in archaeology and business development.
Wow, that's incredible. So both of you have some really great backgrounds and being out there on the West Coast and enjoying the outdoors.
Oh, absolutely.
And either of you have a personal story you wanted to share with the listeners? Something it doesn't have to be business related, but just something about you that's personal and memorable.
Yeah, I mean, personally, probably it's like where I grew up in upstate New York, a ski resort called Vibe Alice, but we called it the Parkway. It's just a great place as a kid to where, I used to walk about a mile to the store, then up this hill and go through the cemetery, and actually that would lead you to the ski resort, and I'd always ski there every single day, and me and my friends would go and build jumps and have a good time, and as young kids, everybody got out there and had their little fun times, and it was just a great place to get away. So, I mean, skiing has always been a big part of my life, so I think when I always thought of the bike boards and I got into mountain biking and wanting to put skis on my bike, it was just kind of a natural thing. I mean, my whole life was skiing, so I'm always around snow. So I'm just kind of that outdoor person that, I don't think a lot of people know that. I mean, I also grew up as a musician playing in bands and for years. So I think when I tell my friends, like, I kind of invented the bike boards, I think that they kind of look at me like a little shocked. But at the same time, I think they understand just because of the type of person that I am. I'm always trying to push the limits and things. Trace?
Yeah, so I guess when people always say, you never quite know where you're really going to end up. You can create that 5-year plan or 10-year plan, and it may end up someplace still unexpected. And I think that's kind of how my story has been. I grew up in Tennessee. I got involved in BikeBoards with Dave, but I never had that experience even on the snow. But I think my life and background still kind of added up to be beneficial to this partnership, because I was always willing to try different activities and new things. I could probably an activity someone's tried. I've tried it at some point in my life. I've never been very good at any of them, but I've tried everything from snowboarding, water skiing, biking, gymnastics, basketball, the music with bands. I had that background too. And somehow you realize over time, all those different experiences really kind of give you something to build on and be confident to try something new. So when this opportunity came up with Dave, somehow it just naturally became something that I felt like I could really contribute to.
Sure. And both of you have, these backgrounds of being adventurous and outdoors and willing to try, different new things and to be together in this venture and selling bike boards is got to be an incredible experience for both of you. And, what's it like to be able to work together and sometimes having a partner can be really good at times, and it could also kind of cause some issues. But
Well, I'll start first, and that would be a really long show. But so no, just to be completely honest, I mean, me and Trace have been through a lot together. I mean, a lot of up and downs, and I mean, it's just like through doing all the social media work, the filming, getting outside, responding to kids. At 51 years old, I'm not your typical, I don't know what you say, like older guy. I mean, I'm very active. What I do a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, playing my
Mhm.
music. I'm always active, but between me and Tracer was always, I think, a struggle where I always keep pushing, 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 and Tracy helped me realize that balance. And I struggled at first, and I still do, but she brings me back to show me how to kind of come back to myself and kind of be in that moment and not, just keep going outside of myself and saying, I have to do this, I got to get this done, or I've got to post this. So it's a fine balance that we've learned, being together. So I think it's a very good thing. And, her with her business sense, I've had to learn not to trust her, because I've always trusted her from the very beginning. I knew with her business degree, but Tracy thinks outside of the box like I do, but she has that good education and that general knowledge on top of that. And I don't think you can really just get that with a degree. You have to actually have some kind of foresight to understand things that are just thrown at you. And that's what she's good at picking up on.
Got
Yeah,
you. So it sounds like, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tracy.
we complement each other in a lot of ways, but we're very different in some ways too. And like you said, he has this, when he talks about pushing and pushing, that's his passion behind what
Right.
he does. And I respect that so much, because I know this would not ever be where it is without that. But I also understand the burnout and how the burnout can affect you over time, and it creates these, emotional outbursts occasionally when you're just too tired to really process what's going on anymore. But at the same time, we also both have that sense of responsibility where we just keep pushing forward, and you have to have that too. So it's where there's a balance. It's still always a struggle daily to try to do that, because we both have this real sense of responsibility that we're the ones that have to solve the problems and make it go forward.
Yeah, and I agree. It sounds like you both complement each other a lot and keep each other on the track. Who's the cranky one?
That would probably be me, but I call that passion. But, it's funny when I watch, when you watch the shows like either Shark Tank or all these different entrepreneur shows, and people go on, the guys are like, I'm up at 4 a.m, and I'm thinking to myself, God, I am up at 4 a.m. all the time. But it's because I'm always trying to not outdo somebody. I'm always trying to get up early and beat somebody to something that maybe doesn't exist, or that I just have to be there first. I always want to be that person to get there, get it done. And it's who I am. It's like, if I wasn't passionate about it, when I talk to people in wheelchairs, the adaptive sports side, just everything, this passion comes out and they hear it in me. And it's just like, you're such a kind person, you're so great to talk to. And I was like, but I'm just a regular guy. I just came up with an idea to enhance my experience and solve a problem. So, I mean,
Sure.
It's interesting when you talk to people.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you have that hard wiring to be an entrepreneur, and you have that drive, which you must have in order to continue down this journey, because there's always pitfalls and roadblocks, and you have to have that ability to get through that. And
Absolutely.
let's kind of shift gears into where do you see the company going in 2017?
In 2017, we have a lot of good connections coming to us from other countries and developing bike boards in other countries, and people that want to work with us. So there's a lot coming. So, as far as with the adaptive sports, we have a lady in Oregon that's representing us. It's going around to a lot of ski resorts and opening many doors for us as far as with the ski bikes and the different ski resorts. The adaptive community, the wheelchairs, we have this older gentleman very intrigued by our product. Other bike companies throughout Europe, Austria, Germany, Switzerland. It's kind of growing. It's so funny how things will start outside of the U.S. People will recognize stuff. And I always realize that from like Eurobike is a big show that trickles down to Interbike. All the big sports and everything seem to start outside of this country. As you look at from like the snowboarding, skiing, everything just kind of comes from other places, and then we kind of build off that. So for me, I'm pretty psyched that we get to bring bike boards. It's so many different areas, from bike trailers to wheelchairs to bikes. So I mean, it's kind of endless, honestly, Tim, the possibilities. I mean, for myself, I see it growing. Last year was a struggle. We had sales, but this year things just keep coming naturally as we meet people and they're coming to us. I have my moments where I'm like, what's going on? Is this crazy? But when I go out and I ride my bike in 5 feet of powder, I know it works. I know what it does. And talking to different people in all those different areas, as I just mentioned, it just helps reassure me. Trace, what are your thoughts?
Well, and like you mentioned before, there with who's the one who gets frustrated or about things, or those walls that you come up against. And I think kind of it's Dave's mentioning, I think sometimes in other cultures or other countries, you don't have as many of those walls as we kind of build up here in our culture and our environment. We're all really good about having an opinion and being critical of things. And you're taught as a good entrepreneur to do that analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And I kind of equate like strengths and weaknesses to strengths are your positives, weaknesses are your negatives. And people tend to weigh weaknesses, I think, really over the positives as if they're more important somehow. And to me, you got to look at those positives and really chase the positive, as that's what's important to you. That's your goal, your vision, where you're trying to go. And just look at those weaknesses and things that make you frustrated and realize those are just problems to be solved. And if you're willing to have the patience and work through those, you'll just make the positive parts even stronger and the weak parts even weaker. And you will get to that goal, but you have to have that persistence. And I think that's where we're kind of starting to get to that point. We feel like we've been pushing against a lot of walls, but we're finally finding those little paths of opportunity that are helping us open up more and more.
Yeah, and I think what you said about people looking at the negatives a lot. If they're looking at their negatives in their personal life so much, and then usually they'll carry that into the business, and that can be a really difficult thing and a dangerous thing, because there's always going to be something negative that you could look at and kind of get sidetracked with, and so you really have to almost force yourself to be able to look to that positive area. Just quickly, I was wondering how much of your business is kind of tailored to those with maybe disabilities, handicaps, wheelchairs, and things like that. Is that kind of growing from where you were before? Did you ever think that was going to be a part of what you do?
Yeah, it started off when long story short, I met my partner, Nick, one of the other founders, when I pushed my bike past him and asked him for help. And, Nick stays in the background as Tracy and I do the majority of the work, of everything. Nick's, good supporter. But we always had a good foresight for wheelchairs, for bike trailers, and everything. And for bikes, it just wasn't a one-trick pony. And I've talked to guys that have created a lot of different snow sports and said, you guys have something that's very special, that's unique, and stick with it. To try to find that balance or put it into a percentage, that's hard to say because we focus on all different areas, but maybe Trace could kind of give a little bit better.
Yeah, I think what he's trying to say is we always saw that potential there with the product that we had. As soon as, it was developed out of how Dave wanted to push himself in riding and getting access further into the backcountry with his bike and in the snow conditions. But we always saw where it had other applications. And we've kind of, seen how the markets are so divided for people with different abilities. And we kind of don't like to create that division. Yes, it's very important to segment markets and things and target. But I think sometimes products fail in their development because they segment too much. And the more simple and more functional you make something for a broader group of people, the more you're actually going to bring those people together in your product. Mm-hmm. And we like that idea of not having to segment so much and bringing people together instead of niching it, because people really get less served when they're niched out, I think, sometimes, than if you can make something general, simple, and easy to use at all levels.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I think
And Tim,
that's
just
yeah.
on another note, it's just like, it doesn't matter if it's like wheelchairs, bike trailers, or bikes. Whenever I talk to somebody, it's like a magnet. I just find these people, and that passion comes out. No, if I'm talking to somebody about skiing with my bike or a wheelchair, I'm still the same person that has that same passion. So it depends what day it is and who I'm talking to. And I'd say it's pretty much equal. I mean, I've gone to events, pushed people around in wheelchairs. People can see me in the chair on our videos on the website. Tracy's gone out. I mean, and Nick, and we just done so much. So we just try to do it in so many different areas, and we're passionate about every single one of them. But the adaptive world is one of the toughest ones to break into. That's 100%. And right now we're in a very good spot. We have a good gentleman actually helping us, which is, he's super excited because he sees that our product helps him get from his wheelchair to his sit ski from point A to point B. And I've, had guys, say, oh, this is not going to replace the sit ski. I go, it's not about that. It's about people being allowed to take their wheelchairs out in a local trail or a local street or park for kids that can't afford anything, that want to almost pretend like they're out in the woods having a good time. You have to have that same experience.
Sure.
The same. Yeah. So, I mean, I could go on forever about it.
And I don't think people without disabilities could fully appreciate it, at being able to give someone the freedom and an ability to experience joy in a way that they haven't before because of whatever limitation they had is just an awesome thing that you're able to provide. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that's great. Well, let's move on. What are some tips that you would give entrepreneurs who are out there who want to start their own business, or maybe they've got one toe in and they're kind of a sidepreneur? What kind of tips would you give those people?
Yeah, mine directly is, every time somebody tells you you can't do something, do it and prove them wrong. I've had so many people tell me, there's so many guys that have tried to invent skis for bikes with the wheel on, and they failed. And I've been told over and over, the one thing, don't believe what people tell you. Do what you believe in. If you're passionate about it, then do it. I mean, I'm just a person, sometimes people will get me down a little bit, but after a while, you have to just find somebody, maybe use them as a mentor and see their struggles and what they went through and see all their criticisms and realize, God, look where they are today. Use that as an example. It's like you just see the shining star, but you don't see how it became that, star, where it came from, how did it develop? It's that process that makes you who you are today, and it's the struggles. People need to realize, and we need to hear more stories about the struggles of people, about getting up and just, not getting any emails. You get a nasty response from somebody. It's those things that give you the character to get up every single day and develop who you are and what you want to do. And that's just my personal view. Trace, your thoughts?
I think actually those kind of sound exactly the same idea that I had, that I would say is just do something that you believe in, like he said, and be persistent about it. Keep going. And it's not to say, ignore criticisms, because you can learn from that. People can give you great advice to improve what you're doing. But if it's something that you truly believe in, I take that as, then that's, we're all average people. Some people maybe think they're above average on some end. Some of us are less than average on others. Like if I try to go try some new sport, I might struggle a little more at it. But in general, we all have the same, equality, I think, and average needs. And if you believe in something and it's something that's important to you, I guarantee it's going to be important to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to keep pushing to find that path.
Yeah, you got to have that belief regardless of people who either join you or are against you, and it's all about you and it's not about them. And I've actually learned that I would rather have someone tell me that I can't do something, because I've learned to turn it into fuel for my fire.
Exactly.
And now when I'm trying something new, I look for someone to tell me I can't do it. Tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me I'm going to fail. And I actually look for that now. Whereas before, I used to be afraid to death to tell anyone about something I was doing or planning, because I didn't want someone to go, "What are you doing? Why are you I didn't want anyone to question me, because it would just shoot me down. and it just felt like my whole sense of self would just kind of crumble. And somewhere along the way, I just learned to turn that around. I just used it. I would just get pissed off, and I'm like, I'm gonna prove them wrong. There's no way they're gonna tell me. And so I've learned to really use that as kind of gas in my tank to keep me going. And I think people who are fantasize about being entrepreneurs, they kind of have this idea that everyone is an overnight success, that it
Oh,
just
absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
there's all these lucky people who they wake up one morning and they look in their bank account and there's several $1 million there. They've got this wonderful company, this wonderful life. They're driving the Lamborghini and living the high life. And it's just either you're going to get it or you're not. And people just don't see all the struggles that everyone who has been in business has. And you're going to have failures, you're going to have successes, and that's just part of life. Has there been a resource that you've used for your company that has been beneficial for you that you could share with the listeners?
Well, for myself, I'm just not a big reader. I'm more of a visual person. I mean, I've looked at a lot of stuff from like Tony Robbins, and he's very inspirational, very positive person, and honestly, reading a lot of stories about Jake Burton and the guys that developed, oh God, I'm thinking the boards out in Switzerland, the first board. I can't even think of it. Sorry, it escapes me. The guy
That's
developed
okay.
more or less the ski bike, and Bretner. And so, I read his history, and, that kept me very motivated. But honestly, Tim, when I actually met you on Instagram, you're a very big inspiration, because every time I saw your quotes, they were very positive. And when I was ever down, I'd always kind of look and say, God, where'd this guy come from? All of a sudden I see this positive person, and that has helped me too. So, and I
Well, thank you,
appreciate
Dave.
that.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, that's awesome. And a lot of times it's, we never know, what it is that's going to kind of help us to get through the day. And, you just, like you said, sometimes we go on Instagram and we see other people's, stuff, and we go, wow, that just touches me. And you never know what it's going to be. And so I think just to, for everyone just to expose themselves to either, books or, just people who are inspirational in general. And I think being positive is something that, it's difficult at times, because not everybody wakes up to being happy and smiling and positive, and that's just life. But I think, like what Tracy said earlier, that you can either choose to think negative and focus on those issues, or you can, focus on what's positive about your day and go forward and just tackle those tasks and not let it really get into your mind and impact you. But when Dave, and this is for you, is when did you decide, okay, I'm going to take this step, I'm going to actually create a bike board? When
Well,
did that happen?
yeah, that's a little bit of a personal story. It's like, so I actually was going through a divorce at a time, and a couple of years before that, I always thought that I wanted to ski with my bike and do this long race, and I'd always put my bags on my bike and just kind of ride around. I always had this idea, and it was only until after that divorce came around and basically put me in a very bad place that I had met Nick when I was walking past him and told him about the idea. Then I had met Tracy, and I'd met her on a dating site. Nobody knows, and now they do. And all these pictures of me
It's out
climbing.
there.
And they both believed in me. That I was like, God, and she told me she had this business degree, and I was like, that's perfect. And she had all these great ideas to add on to the bike boards, and it was just like, it was meant to be. I mean, people that see our website and they see all the pictures and the videos, we're very creative, artistic people, with music and visuals to do all this stuff. So it was meant to be. I mean, we get so many compliments, and people look at you sometimes like, how'd you come up with this? It's because I always wanted to ski with my bike, and it was that simple. And but I don't think if it wasn't for that divorce that it would put me in a bad spot. I don't know if I really would have pushed through. I think it just would have been a thought that came and gone. It was only
Right.
for Nick and Tracy that really helped me achieve kind of my goals and where we are today, honestly.
And what did your first prototype look like?
Oh, God, what did that look like? Well, we had a few friends help here and there, but initially it was just me and Nick, and we had gone through this. I ordered this old wooden kid's ski that we still have, and then he formed this piece of steel, and hollowed out the center of it, and we had like these hooks where we, wrap over the tire, and it was one solid piece without these adjustable pins, and it would just fit my 29-inch mountain bike. It was hilarious. We still have it. So hopefully it'll be famous one day. But it is pretty funny if you saw it. I think it would work.
But all along the way, we were always thinking, so, you had this big hunk of metal that
it was steel.
that was still one thing on a kid's ski,
Right.
But you were like, but I want it to do this, and I want it to be able to do this and this. And so you just kept making those changes until it did everything you wanted it to do.
And it involved a lot of finding different, finding the ski guide, finding the manufacturers for the pins, the boots, the straps, designing the straps, the colors. So if we all didn't have that, interaction, that input, and we're all artists, each one of us, it just, wouldn't have happened, My brother's my partner, but he stays a lot on the construction side. It's a lot to take on, but he's given his ideas and thoughts, and he's gone to his trade shows and he's helped, but Fran's passion is the construction and riding his bike, and this was just something that was always on my mind, and everybody's help, but just it is what it is. Everybody has their own path in life, and but we all still work together.
Right. Now, did you ever post a picture of that up on your Instagram or your website?
No, I haven't. Because
I think that would be awesome to
I know. Well, see,
where we were and where we are now.
Yeah, the original one was split because, we had a friend at the time says, hey, you should split this in half. And I was like, no way, this is not going to look good. Me and Nick, we're like, okay, we split it. And then it's not the original, but I have yes, I do have a picture of it. Thank you.
It's the artist thing, it's like they don't want you to see it before it's done.
I'll send you a picture. You can post it if you want.
Awesome. I think that would be great. I'm really excited about that. Well, when both of you were growing up, what were some of the messages that you received either from family or friends about money and finances? Because a lot of time, at least I didn't. I guess I should talk for myself. I never got that sit down talk about, okay, son, this is how you manage money, and this is what you do for money, and in school, I never learned anything about money. It was just kind of, I don't know, one of those things like marriage. Nobody gives you a book or an instruction guide or anything. You do it and then you go, oh crap, I screwed up big time.
Yeah.
So what messages did both of you receive growing up about money?
For me, the message I got from my father was just work hard. 24/7. My mother, be a good person. I never really learned about money or I kind of marriage, it was a hard role model when my parents got divorced. So, it was just like, I was kind of like, you could say, the black sheep along with my brother. And, I had kind of left school a little early and he stayed along to kind of, do his thing and, graduate. So I just took different routes. So I kind of learned myself and was kind of a little bit more rebellious. So I learned my own lessons, and by working hard, I was in the union, carpenters, steel workers, bricklayers, along with my brother, and we had to teach ourselves. The only thing I really got from my father was, if you want it, work for it, and work hard. We grew up swimming, on race teams. He'd always create these little competitions for us, and it was always about athletics. He always encouraged us to read, but I just wasn't a big reader. My brother reads more than I do, and my older brother, but not really money lessons. That just wasn't part of it. And the family dynamics was watching more or less divorce. So you had to teach yourself and maybe look at other families, and that played a lot of different roles in my life. But here I am with Trace today, who helps me grow as a person. And Trace, I'm glad to get your side.
So I would say the same. I didn't really have that sit down kind of parents that go over, sit and help you with your homework kind of thing. But it was that unspoken expectations that you just knew. And my parents did set an example in what they did for themselves. So I knew what the expectations were, but it was still kind of out there for me to figure out how I was going to do it, or what my interests were going to be, or where I was going to go. And doing it on my own. I think because they did it on their own. They never really had that guidance themselves either. So they kind of knew what they did, but I don't think they 100% knew how to talk you through it, because if you did something different, they just had their one path that they created for themselves. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, like, as far as the entrepreneurship, like you said, it's not an overnight success. You will have to find some part of that path on your own, or it's not being an entrepreneur. But I grew up, because my parents grew up poor, but they put themselves through school, both of them, and they both made a stable success for themselves. And it was just expected that that's what their daughters were going to do too. I have two sisters. And so I did the same thing, put myself through school and then set out. But the economy changed. So even when you have those examples, you're going to have to find a way to adapt and change and figure out things on your own, because they grew up in a time when school, you could save for it, working a job in the summer to help pay for your school for a year. That's not possible anymore. You're
Right.
gonna, you can't just work for a summer and afford to pay for your college. And people's jobs change. They're laid off more frequently, or they have to choose different careers on a more frequent basis. So for that entrepreneur that's thinking about, getting out of that and doing something for themselves, just realize, all of your experience adds up. All of it's going to help you get there. And, you just have confidence in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that you had said about, your parents basically kind of set an example for you to follow, and maybe didn't, directly tell you anything, but just in their actions. And I think that's pretty common for a lot of families, is just, that unsaid kind of way of how you manage money or finances. And, I kind of had this message that, you go to school and get an education and get a good job. And
Mhm.
basically getting a good job many times can just actually allow you to go into deep debt.
Oh, yeah.
But you get a good job, you get some money, and then you get a good line of credit. And then, it's, if you don't watch out, you can get in trouble really quick.
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of people, kind of don't see that. They think, oh yeah, I'll just get the education, get a good job, and then, we'll see what happens. But, but then when you go off on your own to work for yourself, start a business or a company, then you better understand money really quick, or
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
one of the biggest things that, it's not about, not there's not a lack of ideas out there. A lot of people have ideas, but a lot of people have a lack of funding and understanding of money and what it takes to get a company going and to keep it afloat, and how much money it's going to take to go to different stages of growth. And all those can be quite challenging. And so if you don't, have that education, or at least surround yourself. And I think maybe you don't need to have the education, at least surround yourself with someone who knows. And that would be important. But also something that resonated about, going to school, not being able to pay for your college. And, after coming out of grad school with my doctorate, and, I had a mortgage tied around my neck before I even had a house.
Jeez.
So yeah, and I'll have that probably the rest of my life. But that was, the price I paid to go to school. So, um, that's just part of life. But again, a lot of people aren't getting that kind of specific sit down talk,
Right.
about money and finances, and this is what you should do. And I think that's why there's so many people that struggle today. And talking about struggle, Dave, you had mentioned earlier about, sometimes when you're just kind of feeling down, and, you go on Instagram and kind of see something that would motivate you and kind of pick you back up. Maybe talk a little bit about that mental struggle, for you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, the hardest times, I mean, what people don't realize, I think, with like social media, and, you see all these platforms for raising money, crowdfunding, and all this, everybody's like, oh God, I'm going to make $1 million. For me, it's like, sometimes I get a little frustrated, and you post these 15 seconds of video, and people don't realize what I have to do to get up, to pack my bike, to get everything, to drive through these winter storms, to get up there, to film, to trudge through 5 feet of snow, balance myself on my bike and film, and do this over and over and over. And I come home, and sometimes, I'm excited to make the videos. I'll make them for hours, at a time. And, maybe just kind of argue with my brother a little bit about, our other work, or just, focus more on this. And just, it's just hard, because sometimes it gets to you, and you feel like, God, what am I doing? It's just like, should I be doing this anymore? But then when I'm out there and I'm riding it, I know it works, or I talk to an adaptive person, it snaps me out of it. But I think everybody's into this quick fix of watching like other people on Facebook and social media, like look at their lives, everything's perfect. And then it's not. It's just, I think it's a little too much. I wish there was another way people would show the other side of their life. They're showing like the little live videos. But for me, the struggle is like, I don't know. It's just pulling myself out of dark places sometimes and just realizing I know what I have and it works. And to get myself up, I used to do a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I lived in the Front Range, and working out all the time and just, finding that balance. But for me, it was always Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts, even as a kid, as our father, always took us to places, karate, judo and everything. I found that balance. But when that left my life, it kind of got into Instagram, and I was like, oh, here's a new social media, and it's, you watch people, you'll get a few bad remarks, but it's not like that anymore. But all I could really say is like, you really have to take care of yourself and find that balance. And when you're down, and the only person that's going to pick you up is yourself. And I mean, Tracy tries to do it sometimes, and it doesn't work because I thought of this myself, and I have to pick myself up through it when I go out and do that. And it's a very hard struggle sometimes. And when I watch Shark Tank and all these different shows, and see these people and these deals, and they don't realize it's a handshake, all the contracts after, deals that don't go through, you're still doing the work. They own a percentage of your company or your patent, the success stories or the failures. Nobody really understands the struggles and the dark side of just, I think life in general is trying to be an entrepreneur, of just like, you have to believe in yourself. I believe in it. I know when I watch the videos, the pictures, I see the remarks, the growth, through social media and everything. Sure, sometimes I don't even want to go on Facebook. I'm like, I dread it. I'm like, I want to keep my life private with Tracy, and I want to be left alone. I just want to, go do my jiu-jitsu and don't talk to anybody, but I have to. It's part of what I created.
Right. Now, you said sometimes that you rely on Tracy to kind of, be that kind of strength for you. And so, Tracy, do you find yourself having to kind of be strong for both of you? And who's there? I don't know if, you're the one that kind of has to, hold kind of a positive kind of mindset for both of you. What's that like for you?
Yeah, that happens a lot. But the great thing about, Dave is he recognizes those moments as well. And what sometimes I do, I push to help. I try to, say, well, yes, this might not have gone so well, but look what else has gone well. I kind of have that attitude a lot. But at the same time, like he says, you can't change someone's belief in themselves, and he's got to have that belief himself and see those positives himself. I can't, no matter what I say, you're going to have to be able to pull yourself through it. And that being said, I have my moments too, because, while I'm helping, which is, just the way I grew up, I guess, is to kind of be in that position and help people get through their problems and take the little steps it takes to get through that. I beat myself up too. And if something doesn't work out, because I see the things that work, but I say, I know what's wrong, and I know we can do better, and I know what needs to be done, but like people say, maybe they don't have the money or the resources, or you don't have that right connection just yet, and you beat yourself up for that. And it's like he says, you have to realize you're going to crash and burn a few days here and there and pull yourself out of it.
Well, I think one of the beautiful things with your particular, business and being together in that journey is that you rely on each other. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who are alone.
Absolutely.
And they have no one that, around them constantly. They may be able to reach out to people at times, but you guys have each other there all the time. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And a real benefit to being together on this journey and to be able to help each other and, pick up the slack when one person's, just not feeling it that day and And because when you're by yourself, there's no one there to pick up that slack. And if you don't do it, then it doesn't get done. And so I think that's a real benefit that both of you have over, someone who doesn't have a partner through this journey. And
No,
and Mhm.
oh no, I'd actually give that person credit. I mean, I'm naturally a very positive, upbeat person. I'm full of energy all the time. It's just only those times when you get down, you're just like, wow, it's tough, and you're the only person that can bring yourself back.
And
Right.
for that person that's alone, I mean, like even us together, like I said, sometimes it doesn't matter what I say. He's heard
Yeah,
me
we're
say
alone.
he's heard me say it, 10 times, and he's tired of hearing it.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
but he makes those connections elsewhere. So that person who's alone, especially with the social media and things, we've seen other people out there posting their new products, and you throw ideas back and forth and reach out to each other and share your struggles, and that can be a real help.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just probably not talked about enough. You see a lot more of, people showing suitcases of money, and they're sitting
Yeah,
on
oh, I know.
a yacht and kicking back and dancing, and they're in the club, or they're sitting in the Lambo with the doors up, or whatever it might be. And but the real, when you get down to it and break it all down, is there's a lot of dark moments to be able to build a business. And what both of you are going through is not unique. It's what almost everyone goes through. And so and I think that's helpful for entrepreneurs to know that you're not feeling any different than other people do. That people have their moments. It's part of life. It's when people get stressed and just feel overwhelmed, and people need to be able to understand, well, what is it that gets them back on their feet? Do they need to unplug? Do they need to just get away from everyone for a day, or what is it? And I think that's the most important thing, is to realize what recharges your batteries. It's almost like when your cell phone starts to die, and you're like, oh no, I need to go find a place to plug it up. And and that's kind of what we need to do for ourselves as people, as our batteries get low. It's just life. It's normal. It doesn't matter who you are. And so you need to be able to figure out what recharges your batteries. And talking about being recharged, what's been the most fulfilling part of this whole journey for both of you?
Wow, actually just seeing something come to life and really work, and know that we can help people in the adaptive world, that we can help so many people and so many different products in so many different ways. That's where it shocks me sometimes when you talk to all these, different type of people, and you get to see their smiles, the reaction, the struggle. You're solving a problem in so many different areas. So, I mean, initially, when I had thought of this, I didn't think of the wheelchairs or anything else. None of us did. It's only a collaborative effort that we all came together, and it's like, wow, look at what we're doing. I mean, I could die tomorrow and say, you know what? One day it's going to help somebody in wheelchairs with their bikes and bike trailers, and I'm happy with that. I'm sure the same with Tracy, Nick, and my brother, but, just to do something that nobody else has done and make it happen and prove them all wrong. I'm not out to prove anybody wrong. I'm just out to prove what I came up with works, and no one was going to stop me from doing it. It just won't happen. It's the way I'm wired. Once I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it. And you could criticize me all you want, but I'll just prove you wrong. Not to prove you wrong, just to show you that I can make what I say happen, because I believe in it, and that's what you have to do.
Absolutely. What about for you, Tracy?
Same thing. It was just this. I remember the ideas being scratched out on piece of paper on a coffee table,
Yeah.
and getting to where we are today. And so to me, it's just that proof that, it literally started with, Dave's frustration, pushing his bike through the snow and where he wanted to go with it. And to be able to realize that, yes, you can take something that's important to you, that's a need for you or a problem for you, and solve it. And it can help other people at the same time. Bigger than what you thought it could be.
Yep. And that's got to be probably first and foremost for anybody out there in business is, are they focused on the people that's going to benefit from their product or service? Because if they're not, if they're focused on that bank account, they're going to have some serious issues down the road. But
Absolutely.
To be able to serve and give back to people is one of the most important things you can do. And it doesn't matter whether you own a cleaning company and you're cleaning toilets. I mean, you're making someone happy when I know I'm happy when I go into a clean bathroom.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
so am I. I'm grateful when I see the people in there cleaning, doing a job. I was just like, everybody has a job to do in life,
Yeah,
and
yeah. There's dignity in every job. Absolutely.
absolutely.
Well, and I've had
100.
people literally express that appreciation where I worked in my archaeology Colorado National Monument this last season, and literally had visitors in the park come up to just to tell me to say, "Hey, we appreciate that your facilities are so clean here." It
That's awesome.
it everything is appreciated, and
Yeah.
the people that express it are even more awesome.
Absolutely. Well, you just gave me an idea. Maybe I can have a whole show on bathrooms. That might be pretty interesting. I'll probably, or maybe not. I don't know.
You probably learn a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quite a bit.
So, what was that?
Oh, quite a bit for sure.
Yeah. Well, now I'm going to turn it around and let you guys ask me a question. If you have one, anything that, I mean, it could be, personal, or it could be something about, I don't know, leadership or business, or you name it. I'll turn it around. This is what makes the show a little bit different.
All right, perfect. So I wanted to ask you about your when you race dirt bikes, and if you could give me a little background on that. Because when I saw those old white boots, and it's like one of the things when I first saw on your post, I was like, wow, maybe this guy's an great racer, and I can get him to put it on his dirt bike, And I was like, I go, this is it, this is the guy, And of course, it's always that guy. So tell me a little bit about that, Tim.
Yeah, that's funny you brought that up. And
Yeah.
I was telling someone the other day about those motocross boots. And I grew up in the 80s racing. And for people out there who were around during that time, they know the boots back then were like all leather. And especially if you get the white ones, they were really hard to keep clean. And I used to go through like 2 or 3, things of shoe polish to keep those things clean, and they were real pride. But no, I grew up racing amateur motocross. I was never professional, but it was something that I look back with fond memories, because it was a time that I spent with my dad, and it was just something that him and I did together. And my mom wasn't really interested in my racing, but my dad really was. And I don't know, maybe I started in 8th or ninth grade and raced for many years. And we used to travel around the eastern United States, from Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and we would go to all the amateur events. And I even raced at Loretta Lynn's National one year, and that was just a great experience. But we did that for many years, almost every weekend, and I'll tell you, it was just a special moment. And I have a lot of pictures. My dad had passed away in 2012, and I look back at those pictures of me and him during those days, and I wouldn't trade that in for anything. And I just learned a lot racing. I never turned professional. I was just an amateur, but the lessons that I learned racing, I was able to apply later on in my life. There were several times I've had a couple of concussions, and I raced with a broken big toe, and in an event that I traveled a long way for, and I didn't want to tell my dad that I couldn't ride, so I went out there and continued to ride the main event after that, and it was so painful. But I reflect on those moments of pain when difficulties arrive, either in business or personal, and I think, man, I got through that time. I can get through anything, and so it's just a lot of lessons learned, and just the experience that my dad and I had. It was incredible, and I would never change that for the world. And he worked on my bikes, and he drove to all the events, and I was the one that just rode, and we had this kind of old beat up little motorhome that we used to take, and a little trailer, and man, it was just fun. It was great. And I had my little brother at the time. He'd go with us, and he never got into racing, but he kind of grew up around bikes, and so it was just something neat. And now I kind of get to live my dream of being a professional racer, because I work with professional motocross racers down at Club MX, and so that there's professional and amateur guys that live there and train year round. And so it's been a real pleasure to work as a mental skills coach with those guys, and to be able to stay connected with the sport, and so I really love it. So I'm glad you brought that up, Dave, for asking me about that, because motocross is definitely my passion.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you also about the mental side of it with the coaching. What kind of struggles do you see? Because I know we've talked about, and you've helped me out just as, just a friend as we've met, a little bit and give me some great advice. But what do you see the biggest struggles and like their fears to where sometimes you're shocked and you're like, God, I can't believe that?
Yeah, that's a great question. For a lot of the top professional guys that I work with, many times it's being able to not be distracted by things that are going on, either their personal life or while they're at a big event. They have quite a bit of stress on them as well from their sponsors, from their race team, from fans, from family, and they get pulled in a lot of different directions, and it's easy for them to get distracted. And so some of the work that I've done with them is to help them improve their focus, and also, something that they probably didn't work on until they got to a higher level is to be able to relax. It's many times they get kind of overexcited and kind of worked up, especially before a race. And so I do a lot of techniques to help them regulate their breathing and to reduce their heart rate. And I've seen a tremendous amount of results with the guys who are able to utilize these, I call them belly breathing techniques, where they take a full breath using your lower diaphragm in your lungs, and you fill that whole region up, and you breathe in through your nose, and then you hold it, and then you exhale out through your mouth, and you do that several times, and it changes the neurochemicals in your brain. And even when you get worked up, you either get anxious or stressed or even depressed or angry. Being able to regulate your breathing is a wonderful way to change your physiology, and you will notice an improvement in how you feel and in your focus. And so for those guys who are racing, for them to be able to regulate their breathing, it also helps get that oxygen to all of those muscle groups and even to their brain, which is really important because they have to make split second decisions where they could be in a life or death situation, and so they don't really have time to think. So the more oxygen they get to their brain, it's going to be beneficial for them, because sometimes they will get so anxious and get worked up at a big event that two things will happen with their breathing. They'll either hold their breath or they'll have these really short, shallow breaths. And that it causes you to kind of hyperventilate, and your heart rate starts to increase, and you kind of feel like you're suffocating. You don't get the oxygen to your brain, to the muscle groups, and then they just perform poorly. And so I consistently get these guys come back to me, and they're not like, Tim, I was so relaxed. I wasn't even hardly even thinking about the race, and it was one of my best. And so, that's kind of been my go-to thing is to really help them regulate their breathing. And then we also do some mental imagery as well, and have them visualize different things that maybe they're struggling with on the track. It could be their starts, or it might be a particular section on the track. And a lot of times our brains can't tell the difference when we engage in consistent mental imagery, and our brains will interpret it as actually doing it. Like when you go out and you play golf, and you go out and you hit golf balls. Maybe you hit a bucket of 200 golf balls. You can actually do that. You can hit 200 golf balls in your mind sitting on the couch, and it will almost do the same thing as far as training your brain and having muscle memory of doing that. It's an incredible thing. So mental imagery and a lot of breathing techniques, and helping them to kind of de-escalate and to refocus and bring down that stress level.
And and also, I mean, another question for you. And
Yeah.
so, when did you develop the passion that made you want to work with people and on the sports side and with athletes?
I kind of just stumbled upon that. I've been a psychologist for a number of years, and once I had moved to Columbia here in South Carolina, I was just online, and I saw this training facility called Club MX, and they're in Chesterfield, South Carolina, and it's about almost 2 hours away. And I don't know I was just fascinated. I was like, oh my goodness, this is awesome, because they didn't have these training facilities when I was growing up. And so I just contacted the owner, Brandon Haas, and I told him about my background racing and my clinical work as a psychologist, and a lot of the skills that I had learned in the classroom for clinical settings applies to the sports world as well. And so I understood, that side as far as amateur racing goes, but I didn't understand, the professional side. But I just contacted him, and I just took a chance, and I said, hey, this is who I am. Maybe there's something I can do for you. And I went out there and I started working with one of their top guys for free. And I said, hey, if he likes it, then let's talk business after that, and let me work with the other guys. And that's what happened. They enjoyed what I did, and it just kind of got going that way. So I stepped out of my comfort zone and just took a risk. And I think that's part of, for entrepreneurs, they need to be able to take risk and get out of their comfort zones. Too many times we want to do the same thing every day in and day out. We eat probably at the same 3 or 4 restaurants. We drive the same way to, wherever we're going to our schools or work, or, our companies that we have. We typically like consistent patterns, but those consistent patterns can hold us back if we're not making changes and taking risk, and as far as entrepreneurs. So that's kind of how that got started.
Yeah, and what made you develop this show?
This is another kind of step out of my comfort zone, and
As an entrepreneur.
as an entrepreneur, and do something different. I am by no means a show host in the traditional train sense. I figured I've done enough clinical interviews, and I've met with enough people, either as a client, in organizational. I also do some organizational consulting and executive coaching as well. I'm kind of the jack of all trades. So I've done the clinical piece, and I've worked with organizations as a consultant, work with executive coaches, and work with professional athletes. And it's all talking with people, and understanding systems and theory, and being able to sit down and have a conversation with someone. And I thought, man, podcasting, that's right down my alley. Why can't I do it? So that's why I'm here. And again, it's stepping out of my comfort zone, because I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm struggling with all this technical stuff. And even last night I was throwing my hands up in the air, because I was like, I just telling my wife, I can't do this. I have this mixer board, and I don't understand anything technical. Again, I grew up in the 80s. So, it's just, I'm an idiot when it comes to this stuff, and it drives me nuts. I mean, I just want to pick this thing up and throw it out the window sometimes. But, you just have to keep working at stuff.
Well, I'd say, you're absolutely right. All that you just gave, the being able to help yourself stay focused, and control your anxieties with your breathing, like all these things people don't think about, because you're so focused on the big things. Those little things make a big difference. And getting out of your comfort zone, we do the same thing. Dave didn't know half of his media programs on his little laptop here, and we're out there doing all of our own videos and shooting, like you said, struggle and forcing himself to learn these things. I can't tell you how many times he's been on the phone with tech help just to learn it and get through it. We haven't had those classes and things. So you have to push yourself beyond. And I'd say it's kind of silly, but even growing up as a kid, I had kind of a phobia of talking to people on the phone. I was very shy and very uncomfortable with that. And one of the most dreaded jobs I ever took was one where I was going to have to answer about 50 calls a day. Oh, no. But I got over it.
Right. So you learn pretty quick.
Yeah, sure. You learn really quick. But these conversations are awesome and so helpful and so necessary, I think. And I'm so glad that you're making this available right now, just because people can really get that chance to see what the reality is.
I appreciate it. And you guys have been really great. And I appreciate having you on the show. And I would like to kind of give you a chance to have some parting words and tell people where they can find your company online, your email address, and where they can find you on Instagram and Facebook and all that good stuff.
Yeah, guys, you can find us at www.bikeboards.net, and on Instagram you can go to @dbclimb. Facebook, we're just BikeBoards, and also on YouTube you can just find us at BikeBoards LLC, and you can also find Tracy on Instagram. What's your Instagram, Tracy?
It's Hootl, HOOTL. And yeah, just go to our website, bikeboards.net. We have info at bikeboards.net. Email us. We'd love to get emails. We chat all the time. Direct message us on the Instagram. We love talking to people and getting people's ideas and feedback. And sharing experiences.
Awesome. BikeBoards.net, everyone. Be sure to check them out. Well, thank you very much for your time, Dave and Tracy, and I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I hope to talk to you soon, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Awesome. We appreciate
Thanks so
your time.
much. This was
Thanks,
awesome.
Tim. It was great.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Want more entrepreneurial tips? Go to timlaskus.com.